Hi, I'm Donna. Ooh, I'm allowed Donna. Just a couple of quick announcements. Next week is Memorial Day, so there will be no class. Tonight you have a guest teacher, our noble director, Robbie. And the following week, which is the last class week of this class, although there's a practice day after that, we'll have Don Handrick teaching the class. So I think this is actually really beneficial if you're studying about refuge and considering taking refuge with Geshe-la, that you get to hear from a lot of different people and ask questions of a lot of different people about refuge if you're considering taking that step. Speaking of Don Handrick, he is going to be here visiting beginning Friday of next week. He's going to teach a weekend workshop on the Noble Eightfold Path, which is, you may have heard of right speech, right livelihood, it's like ethics, an ethical way to live, which brings us to happiness. And he will also, that'll be over the weekend, and then Monday night he'll be teaching this class, and then Tuesday and Wednesday he's going to be doing a couple of little short sessions on what's so bad about complaining and using work as a spiritual path. So when we have visiting teachers, and it's always worth reminding us at all times that as with everything we do when we're offering Dharma, that is always offered on a donation basis. So we welcome any financial support for his visit or financial support for this class. But we also, there's an opportunity when we have visiting teachers to volunteer a little more than you might do in other ways, and that kind of gets you a little more involved. So we'll be looking for greeters for all the sessions that he's here, and also folks to set up and take down the water offering bowls. And I have a little sign-up sheet here if anybody is interested, if you want to think about it. I'm just going to pass it around the room and just make sure it gets to Erin by the end of the class, and you can think about signing up for any of those opportunities. And I think that's my whole dog and pony show. So.
Thank you. Did you, I'm sorry, at the beginning, did you mention that Geshe-la is going to be doing a refuge ceremony?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I touched on it, glanced off of it, but yes, Geshe-la is going to be offering refuge, and the refuge ceremony that he's offering is it's making a commitment to Buddhism as your spiritual path. It's creating a karmic bond with the teacher who offers refuge, and I really can't think of, Geshe-la would be a wonderful person to create that karmic bond with, especially if you're coming here and you're getting to know him. It just really tightens that. So he's going to be offering that on Friday night, June 9, which is Sakadawa. Another wonderful thing about that, that's a Buddhist holy day that marks the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and the term is passing into parinirvana, which we normally think of as death. So it's a very auspicious day. If you think in these terms, it's a day when the karmic effects of anything you do, positive or negative, are really multiplied. So it's a really auspicious time to be doing something like taking refuge. So it really adds some juice to that. And that's, having Robbie here is a good opportunity if you have questions about refuge. He'll also be offering lay vows and bodhisattva vows on that night.
Yeah.
So
and people will have to register in advance. Yeah, you just can't.
Robbie really needs to do my job. We do
I
have
did for many years. Yeah.
We have if you go to our website, to the calendar on our website, and look for June 9th, there's and you click on the event for the day, then you can register there, and you need to register by Tuesday night, so that gives us time to. You'll get a Dharma name, which is really a wonderful thing. So that gives us time to sort of tell Geshe-la how many people to expect and how many men and how many women, and he can think about the Dharma names for you. And I think that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Robbie.
Did you have any announcements, Erin? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name's Robbie Watkins. I'm one of the Discovering Buddhism teachers. But I don't think I've ever taught this module before. I usually do the ones on mind and emptiness and karma. But I don't think I've ever done the one on refuge, so it will be interesting to see how this goes tonight. But I'm the substitute teacher, so at some point when I turn my back, you can all drop your books on the floor at the same time. Just make sure you don't drop a Dharma book on the floor. That would be really bad karma. How many classes have there been? This is the fourth, okay. So the subject is refuge. And does Shankar usually start with some prayers? I would like to start with some prayers, if that's okay with people.
Yes, we've had a lot of announcements starting off because of the
Yeah.
refuge plans coming up, and briefly prayers. But yes, the first time he did, and then a meditation,
Yeah.
and we do them at the end as well.
Okay. Do we have anyone who's here for the very first time tonight? First time for this class? Okay. But you've been to Kadampa Center many times before. Okay. So if you can get a copy of the Gold Prayer Book, we'll start with some prayers. I think particularly in this class, it's appropriate. The first one being generating refuge. So we'll read generating refuge, the four immeasurables, 7-limb prayer, and then the short mandala offering. And if you don't understand them, that's perfectly okay, but we'll talk a little bit about the first one. The first one is going for refuge. This is on page 34. Yeah, good question. So the first question is, can we go for refuge saying this prayer if we haven't actually been through a refuge ceremony, if we haven't had an official participation in a refuge ceremony? And I think we can, okay. The ceremony kind of fixes that in our mind, but certainly we can turn for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha before we make the commitment of going through the ceremony. And I was just looking at this, and I'd never realized it says, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. So the implication is that when we're enlightened, we no longer go for refuge. When we become a Buddha ourselves, when we've completely developed our qualities of compassion and wisdom, we just are. It's not like we have to turn to anything outside ourselves at that point for refuge. I mean, I don't know if that's correct, but that's certainly what it seems to imply, doesn't it? But we make a continuous process of going for refuge, which in the Buddhist tradition means turning to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And we'll talk about that some more. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. I'm just going to read through it and make a little commentary. To the Buddha, the historical figure of the Buddha, the Dharma, the teachings of the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, which means the Sangha. By my practice of giving and other perfections, and this refers to a subject called the Six Perfections, which is in another module. Does anybody know what the Six Perfections are? Anybody want to take a stab at some of them? We know what the first one is. He's told us here. Generosity, okay. Patience is one. That's number 4. Compassion is the bodhicitta. Yeah. Okay, I can't remember one myself. Yeah, so help me out here. Generosity, patience, joyful effort, morality or ethics, okay. Concentration and wisdom, okay? Yeah, that's it, okay. Generosity, morality, joyful effort, patience, which is the opposite of anger, concentration, and wisdom, okay? Those are 6 qualities that we practice, and we do them all with bodhicitta or with compassion, so they're all combined with compassion. So they're referred to as the 6 perfected qualities. It's the perfection of generosity. It's not just generosity, but it's generosity done with the bodhicitta motivation. It's not just patience, not just ordinary everyday patience, but patience done with bodhicitta. It's not just concentration, but concentration done with bodhicitta. So that's what makes those qualities perfected or perfections. Now, who knows what bodhicitta is? I use that word a bunch of times. Anybody want to take a stab at that? It's close to it, but it's more specific than that. Loving kindness. You got most of the right words in there. It's the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of others. Okay? So two parts. It's not just the wish to be enlightened, but it's the wish to be enlightened so that I can benefit of others. Not for my own peace and quiet and calmness of mind, though that's the inevitable result, but so that I can be of greater benefit of others. So that's bodhicitta, the great wish, the great aspiration. So we do those qualities with bodhicitta motivating it, the 6 perfections, and that's a practice that we do to make that final step towards enlightenment. We practice the 6 perfections to get us right at the end, to get us over that last little hump till we get to enlightenment. Okay? But we can practice them before we're that close. So we can practice them now. So he's saying, by the practice of giving and the other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So that last line is the bodhicitta, motivation. Okay, so doing the giving and the other perfections, may that be the cause for me to become enlightened, because we know that as good Buddhists we realize that nothing happens without a cause. Nothing is just random. Everything happens for a cause. Okay, so let's read that together 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. And now we'll read the 4 immeasurables together. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginning time, and rejoice in the merit. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. And now we'll do the mandala offering, in which we imagine that we offer all the wonderful things in the world to the Buddhas, and even things we don't have to own them. They don't have to be our possessions. Anything that we can imagine we're offering to the Buddha. And there's a hand mudra. If you're familiar with that, you can do that. Otherwise, you can just hold your 2 hands together. But the mudra symbolizes Mount Meru and everything in the universe. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. So it's said that we say the prayers as if we were tilling the soil before planting the seeds. Prayers soften our mind and break up some of the hard spots so that the seeds of the meditation and discussion to follow will have a better chance of taking root. Because our mind can be quite rocky and stubborn. So even if we don't understand them when we say them, there's great benefit to saying these prayers before every meditation session. So now I'd like to do some meditation. Has Shanka been doing meditation in the classes? Okay. So we're just going to begin with a breathing meditation. And start by checking your posture. The most important aspect of the posture is that our back is a little bit straighter than we normally sit. It's not rigid, but it's said to be a regal or noble posture. Our head is straight on our shoulders, not tilted to one side or the other, maybe just a couple degrees in front of the vertical. Our eyes are either slightly open, so we just get a little bit of light coming in and out, or very lightly closed, but certainly not clenched tight. Our jaw is loosely closed. So the best place to put the tongue is on the inner aspect of the upper gum above the teeth. Our shoulders are down, not up around our ears, but down and a little bit back, so our chest is open. Our arms are away from the sides of our torso so that some air can pass in and out. And we can sit either with our hands on our knees, which is fine, or more typically in this tradition, we place our right hand on left, symbolizing the union of wisdom and compassion that is enlightenment, with our thumbs touching slightly below the navel. If we're sitting on a cushion, it's good to be a little bit to the front of the cushion. And our legs can be in any variety of crossed position that we find comfortable and non-distracting. If you're sitting in a chair, have your feet flat on the floor, and it's fine to put a cushion under your feet if that's more comfortable. The point of the posture is that it is stable, self-maintaining, and non-distracting. It's not like we're supposed to be torturing ourselves into some version of a pretzel. But we establish the posture at the beginning so that through the rest of the meditation we don't have to worry about it. It's a non-distraction. So take a moment and just scan your posture, starting at the top of the head, down through your body. And if there are any sources of tension or discomfort, address those now so they don't come up during the meditation. And having established our posture, we'll now take 3 deep breaths with the stomach expanding on the in-breath. So our diaphragm is pulled down and our lungs are completely filled. And then the stomach contracts towards the spine on the out-breath through both nostrils. So do 3 breaths like that. And now we allow our breathing to return to its normal pattern. Again, we touch on our motivation for being here tonight, for doing this meditation, for participating in the discussion that's to follow. And it's said that the most powerful, the most valuable motivation is the bodhicitta motivation that we've already talked about. The idea that I am doing this meditation for the next few minutes with the wish to become enlightened so that I can benefit others. And to think that way may seem kind of grandiose or even strange, but try and generate at least a little bit of that sense, the bodhicitta motivation for doing this meditation. And having set our motivation, we can now begin the actual meditation, a very simple breathing meditation. We just place our concentration on the movement of the breath in and out through the openings of our nostrils. Just that physical sensation. We're not imagining the breath. We're not visualizing it. We're not describing it to ourselves. It's just direct perception. Mind on the breath. Nothing more and nothing less than that. And every time we notice that our mind has wandered off to a sound or a memory of something that happened today, or thought of something we need to do this evening when we leave, or of an ache in our body somewhere, we just set that aside and come back to the breath. over and over and over again, always bringing the mind back to the breath. And that is the meditation. And just as we always begin our meditation by setting our motivation, we always end it by doing a dedication, which means that we put a seal on the meditation. We acknowledge that we've done something out of the ordinary, something that even in a very small way has had a positive imprint on our mind stream. And we think, may that positive energy not be lost or dissipated, but through the laws of karma, may it ripen in the future in a way that benefits all sentient beings. So just think like that for a moment. Any questions about the prayers that we did or about that meditation or comments? Are people doing a meditation at home in between classes? Okay, good. Is that you have a comment to make? Oh, okay, yes. Good. Okay, great, thank you. That happens to all of us, yes. I think as we get older, the leg cramps become more severe sometimes. Okay, so somebody tell me what y'all have covered in this class so far. Anybody want to take a stab at what Shanka has laid on you? People flipping back in their notes.
Last class we talked a little bit about the spiritual teacher.
Okay, okay.
The last class we got into talking somewhat about the spiritual teacher, but he said that was your course. He would leave the rest to you.
That's my, okay. Okay.
He said it does affect the refuge a lot.
Yeah, okay. Okay, the importance of a spiritual teacher, good. So what is refuge? What's the definition? What is refuge? Can somebody take a stab at defining that? We use this word a lot. What does it mean? Either in a Buddhist sense or a non-Buddhist sense in life in general. What is a refuge?
Safety.
Safety. Okay. A place of safety. Okay. Safety from what? Suffering. Okay. Good answer. Okay. What else is refuge? So we take refuge, that means we're refugees. Okay? What do we think of when we think of refugees? Homelessness, okay. Do we have anybody here who's homeless? Physically, spiritually, emotionally? Okay. Were you going to say something? Oh, you were raising your hand. Yeah, in the back.
When we think refugees, we think people escaping conflict.
Yeah, escaping conflict. Okay, good. Going to a safe place. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good definition. Buddhist refuge specifically is the safe place is defined as the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And what we are fleeing is the chaos and confusion of our uncontrolled mind. Okay, we're not going to a physical place. We're not having to get into a boat and try and cross the Mediterranean. We're just acknowledging to ourselves that things are not working currently, maybe in huge ways, maybe just in small ways, but our life is not working. Our mind is unhappy, is disturbed, and we look to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as our refuge from that. Did Shanka use the image of the storm and the shelter? Okay. Okay. There are two motivators for going for refuge. Okay. And in the two things that motivate us to go for refuge, And the first one in the teachings traditionally is referred to as fear. We're motivated by fear, and a lot of people don't like that. We don't like to say we're motivated by fear, so we can try and express that in a more acceptable manner. We can say that we're motivated by the informed knowledge of the consequences of our actions. Okay, we know if we keep going on like this, based on an understanding of karma, things will not end well. Okay, but we want to avoid continued suffering caused by our karma and delusions. We suffer because of our karma and delusions, and we're afraid to keep on going like that. In the same way that we can say we're afraid to step out in front of a speeding car. Okay, that's not a negative quality, that kind of fear. We know that if we step in front of a car, it will kill us. Okay? It's informed knowledge of the consequences of our actions. And in the same way, if we've studied karma, we understand that we will continue to have problems, and we want to avoid that. So that's the first motivator to go for refuge. We want to stop living our lives like that. The second motivator is that we realize that there is a safe place to go. Okay? If we didn't understand that there was a safe place to go, then there would be no point in going for refuge. It'd just be like wandering in the dark, looking for a safe place. But refuge, Buddhist refuge, is motivated by the understanding that there is a safe place to turn, i.e. the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And an image that's used frequently is it's as if we're out in a vast field and there's a horrible thunderstorm approaching with lightning and hail and terrible thunder. And we know that on the other side of the field there's a very safe, strong barn. Okay? So taking refuge in the barn is motivated, one, by our fear, or understanding of the consequences of the storm, and two, the knowledge that there is a safe place we can go to. Okay, so it's fear of continuing like this, fear of the consequences, and the knowledge that there's a safe place to go to. Otherwise, it's just kind of wishy-washy, okay? If we don't really understand that there's some place to go, we just wind up wandering. If we didn't know there was a barn there, we'd just be running around in the field, and we'd stand under a tree and we'd get struck by lightning. But we know that the barn has a very good lightning rod system on it. It'd be a very safe place to be. It would take care of us in all possibilities. So that's an image of what Buddhist refuge is, motivated by fear and confidence that there is a barn, that there is a safe place, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Any comments or questions about this so far? Yeah, Guillermo.
Could we say that it's not fear, it's just precaution?
Not fear. If you don't like the word fear, you don't have to use that. Yeah, precaution, that's good. Seriously, I think about it as informed awareness of the consequences of our action. Okay? Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to. I'm just giving the word fear because in Buddha, in Tibetan psychology, fear is considered to be a positive quality, actually, if it's based on knowledge. It's not always negative. Unfounded fear is quite negative, but fear based on knowledge can be a very powerful motivator and a very valid one. Yeah. Any other? Okay, over here. Aaron, you're going to get your exercise? Oh, you've got one.
Yeah, he's got one.
Good.
One of the notes that I had that struck me was he said that at the time of death, the most important thing is to have a positive mind and not filled with attachment. And that if we have a great sense of refuge, our mind will continue to stream toward positive things.
Mm-hmm. Right. Talking about the time of death and the mental state that we hope to happen at the time of death. So that brings up an important part. We talk about the refuge ceremony, okay, that's going to be offered by Geshe Geluk, and it's if you feel that the Buddhist path is the path for you and you want to make a commitment, both to yourself and to Geshe Geluk as a teacher, I'd strongly urge you to participate in that. It's not a complicated ceremony. It only lasts, the ceremony itself lasts about 10 minutes. It's not a long ceremony, but Geshe Geluk typically gives a little bit of teaching with it. It's a ceremony that you go through once. Once those of us who have taken refuge can sit and listen, but we don't actually participate in the ceremony. It's a one-time event. You're formal going for refuge. As Donna mentioned, you're given a Tibetan Buddhist name that you carry with you through the rest of your spiritual career. Typically, and my understanding is that Geshe Geluk with the refuge will also expect you to take at least some of the 5 lay vows, okay, which are no killing, stealing, lying, intoxicants, or sexual misconduct. Okay, and just about all the Tibetan teachers in this day and age say you can pick and choose which vows you want to take. They realize trying to get Westerners to take, particularly number 4, is problematic. So you are allowed to pick and choose which ones you want to take. You don't write down or tell anybody, or even Geshe Geluk, which ones you're taking. This is done to yourself. Killing, taking the life of others. Stealing, taking what is not offered freely. Lying, telling what's not true. Intoxicants of any sort, okay, but typically alcohol and mind-altering drugs. And then sexual misconduct, which typically means there are lots of different definitions, some of which are quite graphic, but the one you can think of is not having sexual relations with someone else's partner. And we take vows with the understanding that we're probably going to break them. Probably break all 5 of them if we take all 5, and we'll probably break them over and over again. Vows can be renewed. Okay, you can do a purification and recommit to taking the vows. So don't let the idea that you can't be perfect in keeping those vows stop you from taking refuge. The vows are intended to help you, okay, you remember in certain situations, not always, but certain situations, you'll say, I took a vow from my teacher not to do that. I'm going to restrain from that. It's an aid. It's not a prison or anything, and it's not something that you have to be perfect in. Okay, and the vows you can take over and over and over again. If you've really had a terrible year and you've just broken them right and left, go ahead and take them again from a qualified teacher, a teacher whom you recommend. So anyway, the point is the refuge ceremony is a one-time event, but as what you're saying about, remembering refuge at the time of death, the quality in our mind of having taken refuge is an ongoing thing. It's not, okay, you say, okay, check that off my bucket list, done that, done. No. Going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, if that's the path that you choose to follow, is something that should be in your mind stream continuously, all the way until I'm enlightened. And then apparently you're completely wise, completely compassionate, so you don't have to go to anything outside yourself. Okay, but it's not, you just do it once and that's it. It's all, it's part of your spiritual practice from here on out, acknowledging over and over and over again that you're turning to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha because of concern about your actions and your understanding that that's a safe, reliable place to turn. Initially, we talk about taking refuge in the outer Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Did Shanka talk about that? Okay. Initially, we start with the outer Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. The outer Buddha being the historical figure who lived 2,500 years ago. Human body, human mind. He taught what he had learned, and then he died. Okay? The historical Buddha as a model, a role model. The historical Dharma, the actual Dharma, which are the teachings of the Buddha. Okay, they're in all these volumes you see up here, and they're in books here. So it's the actual teachings, that's the outer Dharma. And then the outer Sangha, or Supreme Assembly as they're called here, which is those who have taken the vows of monasticism, okay, who are, even though they're just people like us on the path, and we shouldn't put them up on a pedestal, they would not like that, but we can take refuge in them as an example to us on how to take vows and keep them. So those are the outer Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the outer objects of refuge. As we progress along the spiritual path, we start to rely on our inner refuge. The inner Buddha is our own potential to become enlightened, our Buddha nature. And it's something that every sentient being, from the littlest ant or cockroach to the smartest human being has. We all have that potential to become enlightened. Okay? That's our inner Buddha. It's only a potential now. It's not like we have a Buddha inside us now. We just need to get the dirt out of the way. That's a really that image is really it's a contradiction in terms. You can't have an obscured Buddha. There's no such thing as a Buddha that can't express itself. So it's a potential we have. Okay, it's a space within us that can become enlightened. The inner Dharma is our own understanding of the teachings of the Buddha, not just reading them in the book, but understanding them and realizing them and making them part of our own life. That's our inner Dharma. And our inner Sangha is our own ability to take the vows and keep the vows. Okay? So we start with the outer objects of refuge, but as we progress along the path, we have our inner refuge. And the outer refuge depends upon looking very closely at the Buddha, looking at the teachings, looking at the Sangha, and determining if they're valid objects of refuge. That's the phrase that's used. Are these valid objects of refuge? Do these objects offer me a safe space? Is this barn on the other side of the field, is it a safe place to run to during the storm? Or is it so rickety and ramshackle that it's going to collapse on me as soon as I get in there and just make things worse? So refuge is not something that we jump into blindly. We need to look at the outer objects of refuge, the historical Buddha, his teachings, and those who follow his teachings. And I think by that, that means that we look at our teachers in this lifetime. Okay, we look at the people who've been practicing the teachings of the Buddha, not just for a couple years or a decade or so, but people like Geshe Geluk, who have lived with them for decades. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's going to be here in August and teaching here and then leading the retreat. And then we have, I think a lot of people have heard, we have this incredible opportunity where the Dalai Lama is going to be coming to Raleigh in October. So, here we are, karma is incredible. Here we are just sitting on our butts in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the greatest Buddhist teachers in the whole world are coming here. It's just not chance. I can promise you that. There's some sort of karma that is drawing these people here to Raleigh, North Carolina. It's not to pat yourselves on the back, but it's something to rejoice in. I mean, within the course of 3 months to have Lama Zopa and then His Holiness show up on our doorstep saying, please listen to me. I've got something to tell you. You know, if you want to hear it, it's just amazing. Anyway, so we look at them as representatives of the Sangha, the product, okay? This is the result of the recipe. You know, it may be a very old cookbook, and it may, you know, be in a beautiful binder and well printed and it reads well, but somebody bakes and it tastes like crap. You know, you're not going to want to follow that recipe. So look at the teachers as a way to check out the objects of refuge. Okay. Yeah, Guillermo. Yeah.
It seems taking refuge is a serious step.
Is what?
A serious step. You are committed to be.
Yeah, it's a serious step. Yeah.
To be a Buddhist in certain way, and perhaps excluding other path. Just you say this is my path, the Buddhist.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah. I don't think it's saying you can't learn from other paths. It's saying this is your main path, though. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's.
In this process, could you share, Robbie, your own experience? How did you go through and decide to take refuge yourself? Or it's because now we are taking a course in Buddhism, and we are perhaps reading or read something before, and we have some knowledge about it. But to know more, what is the proper time to make this commitment?
It's different for everyone. And I'll tell you this, I think probably half the people who I've seen taking refuge here at Kadampa Center from various teachers, from Geshe Galak, from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, from Venerable Robina, they've gone, okay. A lot of people take refuge and they try for a while, and for some reason they decide it's not from them. And I don't think they're accumulating any negative karma by doing that. Okay, I don't think that's bad. I think just to have that connection with a teacher, because we know everything's impermanent, I think that's okay. I mean, not to be entered lightly, but don't feel like you are shutting all doors behind you and you're locking yourself up in a cell that you can't escape from. My experience was I'd been studying Buddhism for about a year, and it just sat with me. I mean, there was just it just fit perfectly. So I went off to the November course in Kopan in Nepal after about a year, and I got to take refuge with Lama Yeshe there, who founded the FPMT, the organization that we were part of. But it was a very easy process for me. There wasn't any struggle or, balance. It just seemed right. Everybody's different, though. Yeah. Let's see, comment here.
The three things that motivate into refugee, you said one is fear, one is confidence, the other
no, there are only two things. Yeah,
okay.
You got both of them. Yeah. But that fear is based on an understanding of karma and death. Okay. Yeah. We understand that our actions have consequences, and we understand that we're going to die. Okay, so that's where the fear comes from, or the informed knowledge about the consequences of our action. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
So we tend to gloss over that vow about no sexual misconduct and say, not another's partner. There's a lot more details to it that can be explicit.
Yeah.
When I took refuge, I thought, well, if I don't really understand this vow, and since then I've read pieces here and there, and, I mean, is it important, do you think, to read all those details and figure that out? Or
no, I don't think those
in
details.
Today's day and age, is it just the main one?
I think that's one definition of I hear a lot. Another definition is not to have sexual relations in a way that causes pain, either physical or mental, to another person, which could be the partner of the person that you're having relations with. I think those are the two ways to think about it. Okay, I don't think the other stuff, I don't think we need, which orifice, how many times, what times of the lunar month and that thing, I don't think are real relevant to the refuge ceremony. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
It's kind of a basic one, but what exactly is the definition of Sangha? I always thought it was like the congregation, and somebody was saying it's more like the priests or something.
The
So I'm not
official
sure.
the official party definition is those who have taken vows of monasticism. It's the robed Sangha. Okay, so it's the people who set up here. But particularly in the West, we use the word Sangha very loosely to apply to everybody who comes to Kadampa Center on a regular basis.
So do
Okay.
we use that? How do we use it? Both ways?
In Refuge, I think the way I think about it in particular is those who have put the teachings of the Buddha into practice, and I think of that mainly as the spiritual teachers. Okay, I think that's, like I say, they're the proof of the pudding.
Right. But
They're
like
the-
if we're talking about the group, I mean, we'd say this is the Sangha.
yeah, we say this
too?
is the Sangha all the time. We use
Okay,
this
so it's both
term.
ways.
Yeah.
I just
Mhm.
wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, but I think in terms of refuge, I mean, to some degree, you do take refuge in the spiritual community here, but I think it's most important in that aspect to think about the teachers, okay, and the people who have been practicing a long time. Maybe they don't have robes, but someone like Jonathan Landau who came here, who's been a serious practitioner for a long, long time. Look at him. Is he is that the results I want to get from my spiritual practice? And it comes, they're very detailed list in the book, particularly in Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand, of the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Dharma, the qualities of the Sangha, why they're valid objects of refuge. And it's worth reading those, but I think it's very much more useful to observe for yourself and see what are the qualities I see here, and is this something that I can trust and rely on? Okay. Okay, so if there are no other comments, I wanted to do one other meditation before we finish. And this is a meditation on the first object of refuge. These are referred to as the three jewels also, the objects of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We talk about the three jewels a lot. So we're going to do a visualization meditation, which is going to be a little bit different from the one we've already done. Are there people who haven't done any visualization? Anybody who's not done? Okay. Okay. Even if you haven't, visualization means imagining. That's all it is. It's nothing more complicated than that, or any more woo-woo or anything. Visualization means just imagining. We use our mind's ability to imagine. So we're going to do a visualization of the historical Buddha in this meditation. So start by checking your posture with the straight back, posture that you can hold for the next few minutes without distraction, without discomfort. And we'll take 3 deep breaths from the abdomen. And now we take a moment and set our motivation. And now just for a couple minutes we'll do our concentration on the breath. Just settle our minds, become a little bit more focused. Just the movement of the breath in and out through our nostrils. And now that our mind is more concentrated and focused, we begin our visualization. And we visualize in the space in front of us, about a body length in front of us, 5 to 6 feet, in the air at the level of our forehead, is a large, white, open lotus blossom. It's made of light. It's three-dimensional. We can walk around it and look at it from all sides. We can look at it from above or below. On the white lotus blossom is a radiant golden cushion. And seated on the cushion is Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical figure of the Buddha, who lived approximately 2,500 years ago. He's made entirely of radiant white light, and he's sitting in meditation posture on the cushion. He's dressed in the robes of a monk. And he's in the form of the statue on the altar behind me. And it's fine to refer to that to help you establish your visualization. His body is made of radiant white light, and he has a beautiful, kind smile on his face as he gazes down on you. Life-size, three-dimensional, and the most important thing is he is real. The image is created by our mind, and it is real. The historical Buddha is in space in front of us, gazing down at us with a beautiful smile on his face. And we take a moment and we think to ourselves of all the wonderful qualities of the Buddha. His generosity, his patience, his ethical behavior, by which we mean he never harms others, his joyful effort in doing good, his concentration, his wisdom, his understanding of reality, and his compassion, his wish that others not suffer. And now we imagine that a beam of radiant golden light streams from the Buddha's heart down to our forehead. That light contains all the wonderful qualities of the Buddha's mind. And the light fills our body, and we possess those same qualities. So we visualize the Buddha, the light, and our body being filled with the light. And now, while we maintain the visualization, we can add to that the Buddha's mantra of compassion. It's a very short one, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. So we can repeat that quietly to ourselves along with the visualization. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And now as we continue the mantra, we visualize that the Buddha moves through space and comes to the space directly over the crown of our head. He is facing in the same direction as we are. And his entire body dissolves into radiant golden light that sinks through the crown of our head and descends to our heart. And we have the incredibly blissful experience of our mind and heart being the same, inseparable from the mind and heart of the historical Buddha. We possess all the wonderful qualities that he has. We are indistinguishable from the perfected Buddha. And keep the mantra going as you visualize this and just stay with that experience. And you can relax your concentration now, doing a brief dedication as you do so. Okay. Any questions or comments about that meditation? Okay. So that would be a good one to do this week. Don't get hung up on the details, and there are many different ways of doing it, with the light going this way and that way and everything. But the as long as you stick with the general idea, that's a classic Shakyamuni Buddha meditation, which is one of the things that you're supposed to get in this module. Become familiar with that. And some people are very good at visualization. It comes very easily. Some people find it very difficult. So just experiment with it and see how it goes. And then I think we're done. Anything else, Aaron? Yeah, okay, we got a couple comments. Yeah. Too late. Class is over.
Did you want to? I had one quick question about seeking refuge. I've been through that ceremony before. So do you recommend not going through it again, or can you?
Well, you can't. Technically, you can't. You can sit in the room and do it silently to yourself. But in terms of participating and getting a name from Geshe Geluk or any other teacher, you should not do that.
Okay, thank you.
That's a one-time thing. Yeah. But my understanding is he's also going to be offering the Bodhisattva vows after the refuge ceremony, which is a more extensive set of vows, and those you can take over and over and over again. So there'll be people coming who just sit in the back, or they may ask them to stay outside for the refuge ceremony, and then they'll come in for the Bodhisattva vows. Again, the Bodhisattva vows is a set of vows we take with the understanding that we're going to be breaking them. Once you read them, you say, not impossible, but I'll aspire to keep them and try and remember them. And then the other thing I didn't mention is when you go through a ceremony like this, when you take a tantric initiation or take vows or refuge ceremony, typically there's a commitment that comes with it. And back in the old days when Buddhism was first coming to the West, the lamas would never tell you what the commitment was. And you'd take some tantric initiation, and then they'd lay on you that the commitment at the end was to go off into the Himalayas for 5 years and sit in a cave or something like that. Now the commitments are much more, particularly in the West, are much more user-friendly, and they usually don't surprise you with something like that. But the commitment for the refuge ceremony is usually something along the lines as to remember your refuge 4 times a day, and to always do an offering when you eat. I don't know what Geshe will give as the commitments, but they're usually quite simple, and you'll break those too. But they're doable if you think about it. Yeah. Okay.
I was just going to mention on the reading, because we have no class on Memorial Day, and then we have another visiting teacher, and then by the time Shanka gets back, I would say we would need to have all the reading done by then. He's assigned a lot of it, so it's just a little bit more in liberation, and then the Discovering Buddhism readings online, the PDF, that's pretty easy to access. So, and I'm a little hesitant to mention this. I think this might be his to mention, but he is not going to be I think he mentioned this, that he's not going to be teaching this class again, that he's relocating to California. So if you want to wrap up a completion card and get it signed and things like that, and you've done all the classes with Shanka, then it would be good to have all that reading done so that he can sign off on that card, and he's been your teacher for that. Or if you're still finishing up how to meditate, which he also taught, either one of those, get all the stuff done, and then we'll be able to wrap that up. Of course, no pressure on actually filling out the completion card. That's just something that you're doing for your own benefit, or as Stephanie pointed out, you never know. You might get through all 14 of those modules. And then you get the privilege of or the responsibility. Yeah. I have one for you. Do you want to do any of the dedication prayers? I think 37 is the one we usually do. Just the one on 36 is what we've been doing. Due to the merits of those virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that is not arisen arise and grow, and may that which is not arisen diminish, but increase more and more.